Hello, thanks for tuning in. My name is Dustin MacFarlane, and you are listening to Death and Taxes. I'm happy to be here. I like doing this radio show. I have a great time with it, and I appreciate you tuning in and listening today. And I've got a lot to talk about today about death and taxes, actually. So I am an estate planning attorney. I own California Probate and Trust. I have an office in Fair Oaks and an office in Granite Bay. And my goal, our purpose, I wake up every morning trying to find ways to help people navigate this complex system that we have in California, where people are trying to take care of loved ones when they get old and sick, and then take care of people's estates after a loved one passes away. If you have questions about this, about your family, your friends, yourself, please give me a call. My number is 866-674-1130. Again, 866-674-1130. Or you can head over to my website at cpt.law. That's CPT, like California Probate Trust, cpt.law. So again, my name is Dustin MacFarlane. I am an estate planning attorney, and I am glad to be here. I just wanted, so every now and then, not every now and then, every day it seems that there's just something crazy that goes on that you think, why isn't this common knowledge? Everyone deals with this. And in fact, that was the driver of what got me to into and why I decided I wanted to go be an estate planning attorney. I always wanted to be an attorney ever since I was a little kid, but when I got into law school and when I sat through the wills and trust class, what I realized is this impacts everyone. And then I got out of law school and I saw a catastrophic kind of a mess in my own family where an estate plan wasn't done properly. The people who were supposed to inherit money didn't inherit money. And I thought, you know what? This impacts everyone. And I decided this is what I wanted to do every single day. So I get up in the morning, I come down here. My wife has to drag me home at night because I love being here. So I want to tell you about just a simple thing that I saw happen recently, and it could happen to any one of us. But I was working with someone whose dad died years ago. And when he died, he left a trust, and just like you're supposed to do. And his dad had 3 houses titled in the name of the trust. Well, let me rephrase, 3 houses that should have been titled in the name of the trust. So the first thing that happened is nobody actually put the houses in the trust. And you think, well, how does that happen? How do the houses actually show up in the trust? And it's something the lawyer probably should have done. But this guy did this. His dad did his trust 30 years ago. The lawyer is long since retired, probably 6 feet under, and it was never transferred to the trust. So when dad died, the son goes to, and it wasn't even me, it was a different attorney years ago, and they end up having to go to court and move these houses back into the trust. So that's problem number 1. And so let me stop there and say, you've got to make sure that your assets are in the trust. It is just a crucial, not only first step, it's the main step. People will come in and they'll get trust done. And if assets aren't connected to the trust, then you end up still in a probate court, even though you paid an attorney and got all this legal work done. So that was the small problem. Let me tell you what, then the big problem was, this gentleman, once he got the assets, the houses back in the trust, he dismissed those lawyers. He said, okay, thank you very much. I'll take it from here. And without any additional legal advice. And I think those lawyers should have kind of argued with him or educated him a little bit more. But without any additional legal advice, he started transferring the houses. And he transferred them to himself and his siblings. And then he's like, oh, well, that triggered a tax reassessment. I didn't want to do that. So then he transferred him back into his dad's trust. The county reassessed the houses again. He's like, oh, that was a mistake. And so then he transferred him to his siblings again, another tax reassessment. And then he's like, oh, that was a problem. And then he said, hey, you guys, I'm having a tough time managing all of this. Why don't you just give me your shares and I will then manage everything and I'll take care of the renters and the mortgages and whatever. Then he transferred his siblings' interest back to him, another tax reassessment. This guy was moving these houses. Now they're paid for houses. They've been in the family for 50 years, 100 years, whatever. They've been around forever. The kids grew up in, one of them was the family home for the last 70 years. And we're not talking about 30-year-olds who don't know how this stuff works. We're talking about people who are in their 70s, who've bought and sold a dozen homes in California, who should have had at least an understanding that when you start transferring property back and forth, the county gets involved. It's not as simple as just, and everyone says, oh, I don't need to hire a lawyer. I can just get a deed from Google and download the form and, fill it out, the quitclaim deed, and then go down to the county and pay my $27 and boom, it's transferred. And yes, it is transferred, but without understanding the rules. And that was this guy's problem. He didn't understand the rules. And so now his property taxes, and I kind of felt bad for him. I went through the whole title history and I'm like, this was wrong, this was wrong, and this was wrong, and this was wrong. And as it turns out, his property taxes jumped $1,700 a month because these properties were dad's properties back in the 50s that he bought for pennies. And now they're worth, $900,000, $1,500,000, whatever, because they're in these very desirable neighborhoods and they've really appreciated a lot. Had he done it correctly, there would have been no reassessment, but instead he had no help, no guidance, started just, I can do it myself. Why do I have to hire an attorney, thousands of dollars to just do what I know how to do, which is file a quitclaim deed with the county? Well, because there's other things going on. There's other consequences. Don't fall into this trap. Even if it seems so simple, so basic, one form filed with the county, that form can cost you thousands and thousands of dollars. Oh, and by the way, now that he's selling the property and he did all of these transfers, it's not only going to impact the houses and the property taxes, but it will also impact the capital gains tax that he'll have to pay when the properties are sold. All because he just didn't know the rules. And it's not that complex. It's just that he didn't know and he didn't go get help. Don't be that guy. Don't be victimized by your own, I don't even know what I want to call it. It's just inexperience, right? You just haven't done this enough times to know exactly how it's going to impact you and your family. If you have questions about this stuff, if you'd like to talk more about it, again, my name is Dustin MacFarlane. My phone number is 866-674-1130. Again, 866-674-1130. You can always go to my website at cpt.law. Send me a quick email in the contact us section. We'll get back to you. We'll schedule a time to talk. We can do it by phone or in person. We love in-person meetings, but if you want to do by phone or Zoom, whatever you'd like to do, we were here to walk you through this process. Don't be a victim. Don't let the government charge you more than's necessary. Hi, thanks for tuning in. I am Dustin MacFarlane, and you are listening to Death and Taxes. I am a California licensed attorney and I have my California insurance license. And if you have any questions about what we talk about today, you can always reach me at 866-674-1130. Again, 866-674-1130, or go to my website, cpt.law. That's Charlie Paul Thomas, CPT for California Probate Trust, .law. So so talking about some advanced planning and some techniques that aren't used by everyone, there's some options that are available that not all attorneys kind of practice or know about or do. And so I was sitting with a family not too long ago, and they had this problem. And I mean, that's why everyone's sitting in front of me, right? You don't go to a lawyer because everything's great in life. You go because you're trying to resolve something. So we have a situation, and let me just kind of describe the family and kind of give you a little bit of background. So it's a second marriage for both the husband and the wife. Husband has 3 children from a previous marriage. Wife has 4 children from a previous marriage. There's about a 15-year age gap between husband and wife. And there's also a big financial disparity. Husband has significantly more assets than his wife. And so the husband is kind of in a pickle here. He's in between. He's trying to make sure he takes care of his children, but he also has a wife that he wants to take care of. So while he's alive, it's really no issue. He and his wife live together. They get along. They have a great marriage. They're happy. But when he passes away, he knows that his money, he wants a lot of it actually to go to his children. And he's like, well, I want to provide for my wife because he's 15 years older. So the odds are he will pass away first. So he says, Dustin, I want to provide for my wife, but I also want to provide for my children. And so then he came and he said, here's my solution. So here was his solution, or what he had come up with. He said, I want to give all my money to my children. And it was about $6 million. I want to give all my money to my children. And then I want to give my wife, when I die, I want to give her she'll inherit his pension. So he earns about $15,000 a year or a month, from his pensions. It was a healthy pension. He'd been with a company for a long time. So he has this big pension, and he says, my wife can have the income and she can live in the house. Can she have the house? Oh, no, she can't have the house. She can live in the house, but when she dies, I want that house to go back to my 3 children. I'm like, oh, okay. So then what if she wants to move? Well, if she sells the house, the money goes to my kids. Oh, well, who owns the money? Well, the trust will own it. And then if it sells or if she dies, it goes to the 3 kids. So, okay. And what if she needs extra money? What if she has a big expense? What if she needs to, he goes, she has lots of income. She has $15,000 a month of income. I'm like, what if she has a big expense? What if something happens? She needs to help one of her kids. She wants to buy something, whatever. Where does that extra money come from? He goes, well, she can't get a loan on the house. I don't want her to do that. I'm like, well, you have $6 million. Why don't you give her some of that and then give your kids $5 million? And he's like, nope, I don't want to do that. I want to give each of my children $2 million. I'm like, okay. And so who am I to judge, right? Like, that's what he wanted. And it doesn't seem fair. So he's either going to help his children to the detriment of his wife, or he's going to give money to his wife to the detriment of his children. And he's really conflicted. And so I proposed this solution to him. It's kind of an elegant solution. I've talked about it before, about using his IRA to buy a life insurance policy, which would give him an extra $1.5 million, right? So instead of having his IRA worth $750,000, now we could have an IRA, or now we'd have a life insurance policy worth about $1.5 million. So like, if you buy this, then you can give your kids essentially the same amount of money, and then you'll leave your wife a little bit of cash on the side, $500,000 or $750,000 or $1 million, however you divide it up. So everyone wins, and all you have to do is buy the life insurance. So he had never heard this before. So he goes and talks to his investment advisor. And you know what his investment advisor said? He said, well, you want to slow down. He said his investment advisor, and remember, investment advisors are paid on assets under management. So if this guy takes his IRA, takes it out of the IRA and buys a life insurance policy, the investment advisor loses income, right? He loses assets under management. And so obviously the investment advisor says, well, that might work for people with $20 or $50 million, but not for little people like you. Let me tell you, somebody who's acquired $6 million is not a little person. Now, there are obviously people with more, but what drives me crazy is when industry professionals are looking out for their own interests and not the interests of the client. And I talked to this investment advisor, and I explained, we're trying to provide more money to both spouse and the children. And here's how the investment advisor told his solution for me. He goes, Dustin, what I'm going to do, instead of doing insurance, He says, we're just going to really double down and grow that IRA. We're going to invest it. The returns are going to be great. And in 10 years, he'll have enough money. And I said, oh, well, what if there's a big dive in the market or the economy? Oh, well, that's a problem. Well, then we probably won't meet the goals. He goes, but that won't happen. I'm like, well, has it happened in the past? Yes. So then, and he goes, okay, so that doesn't solve that problem. And I said, or what if he dies tomorrow? What if he dies in a year instead of 10 years? What's your solution? And he said, I don't really, he goes, well, we'll just kind of, we'll do the best we can. And hopefully things go okay. I'm like, do you have a guaranteed solution? And he goes, no. I'm like, thanks for your time. Because I knew, and he knew it too. And I kind of called him out on it. He was a little bit offended, but that's just how it goes. He was making decisions that benefited him. It wasn't what the client wanted. The client wanted to give money to his kids and money to his wife. And he didn't mind this solution, this elegant solution to be able to provide for both. And instead, he was told by his investment advisor that this isn't done. It's really just a high net worth, $50 million people do this just kind of as an aside to pay. But it's not for little people like you. And I'm here to tell you, you're not a little person. And your investment advisors, I think they're great, most of them. But we want to be careful that they're not just doing things for their own interest, right? And who cares if they lose assets under management? What I care about is that your wishes are carried out. Yes, I am licensed to sell life insurance, but that doesn't, if the money is better off invested in the stock market, don't buy life insurance. But if you need life insurance for something, and if it's the right financial tool for you, great. But what this is really about is getting a solution that fits you and your family, helps accomplish your goals. And we're not just throwing it to the wind and saying, well, I hope it works out. I hope the stock market doesn't go down. If you'd like to talk more about this and maybe a solution that would fit your family, give me a call. My number is 866-674-1130. Hi, we're back. I'm Dustin MacFarlane. Thanks for tuning in today. The name of the show is Death and Taxes, and I am an estate planning attorney. I'm a licensed California licensed insurance agent, and all I do every day is talk to people about. I talk about death and taxes. And it's funny, it's not only at work every day, but it doesn't even bleed into home. It's just like at home also. It's like it consumes everything. In fact, it's such a common topic that my kids kind of joke about it. They joke about having a will, or they have a probate, or we kind of joke about dying. And most people, it's this taboo, hushed tones, we don't want to talk about that. In my household, because of what I do for a living, it's kind of an everyday occurrence. In fact, when my oldest daughter, she's 24 now, when she was 12, I went to her and I said, honey, we're doing our estate plan and we want to know where or who you'd want to live with, you and your brother and sister would want to live with if we died. And my wife and I had these conversations, but I thought, she's 12. She might have an opinion. And she did. And so she's like, well, that's easy, Dad. I want to live with Taylor Swift. I'm like, honey, no, really. She's like, Dad, if you die, then I don't want to live with Grandma. I want to live with Taylor Swift. I'm like, okay, that's fun. So for that version of our advance directive and our will and everything, we nominated Taylor Swift to be the guardian of our 3 children. Now, I am glad we didn't die. I am glad they all made it to adulthood and we didn't have to use that. But I kind of wish, how hilarious would that have been to go through the court system, or to have us pass away and somebody opens the trust and they read, oh, and the nominated guardian of the children is Taylor Swift. They would have taken that to the judge. The court would have forced somebody to reach out to Taylor's people. They would have contacted her agent. They would have given her notice. Probably she would have hired a lawyer and had someone show up in the courtroom. I guess there's a chance, maybe like a 1 in a million chance that that she would actually said, "Oh, that would be great. I would love to be the mother of three, the legal guardian, the mother of three children." I don't know that she actually would have done that. She probably would have politely declined, but how hilarious would that have been? And you could, it doesn't have to be who you think. And if you have minor children, this is probably the worst conversation that you could have. And the reason it is nobody is as good a parent as you. And you know that. You know that you're the best parent. And when you start thinking about your siblings and your friends, you're like, man, I've seen my friend yell at his kids, or my sister, she doesn't, she doesn't do this. She's not that. You disagree with how they parent their children. Or worse, they don't have kids. Or worse, they're old, like grandparents, like old parents in their 80s who have no business raising children. And so you have to nominate somebody. And if you have minor children, you've got to have a nomination. In my 15 years of doing this, I've dealt with 2 orphan cases. I guess maybe 3. Let's call it 3 orphan cases. One, mom died and dad was just AWOL and out of the picture, but 3 orphan cases. And in one of them, the mom died in childbirth. And so the dad and son are left dad was widowed and son was, lost his mother in childbirth, never met her. And life was okay. He lost his mom. And dad got remarried, met a lovely woman, got remarried. They had this happy life. But they never did this legal adoption. They never did anything formal. It was just dad and stepmom. And then dad died when the child was 14 years old. And so now we have a problem. And the problem is that because they didn't do a legal adoption, the stepmom really has no legal standing, standing to actually be the court-appointed guardian, and especially over grandparents. And so the deceased mom's grandparents, so the child's biological maternal grandparents, when we go to court, we have to notify them of what's going on. And so they come out of the woodwork. Now, this kid hadn't met these grandparents but one time when he was like 5. He didn't know these people. And so they come into the courtroom and they want to be the legal guardian. They're asking the judge, and they hire a lawyer, and they want to be the legal guardian of this kid that they've met one time 9 years ago. And we kind of figured, and no one ever said this out loud, but the kid was going to get like $2,800 a month in Social Security until he was 18. And if he went to live with his grandparents would get that money, and they would have an extra almost $3,000 a month to spend. And we think that's why they were actually fighting, because they never sent Christmas cards or birthday cards. They never came to visit. They never asked to go on summer vacation. Like they weren't a part of his life. Fortunately, he was 14. Fortunately, he was able to tell the judge, Your Honor, I don't know these people. I don't want to live with them. I want to live with someone, with my mom, because that's what he called his stepmom. Mom, I want to live with her. I want to stay in the house. I don't want to change schools. I don't want to change up my life. I want to be right here. And so fortunately, the judge was a human and used brains, because that doesn't always happen with judges. And if you're a judge listening, I'm sorry, but you and I both know that's true. And so the judge made the decision and to kind of cancel or deny the grandparents' petition, and they went away and granted the stepmother's petition, and she was appointed the legal guardian of her stepson, and they're fine. And all of this could have been avoided with a really simple will. If dad would have just done a really simple will and saying, I nominate my wife to be the guardian of my child, so that if he passed away and the court's reading this, the court has a clear set of instructions on who should be the next guardian, instead of having to make the decision. And I'm telling you, that was a roll of the dice. That was like, we didn't know what the judge was going to say. We know what the probate code said. In the probate code, the law says that the grandparents have priority. So it was a roll of the dice to whether or not the judge was going to allow him to stay with his stepmother. Don't do that to your kids. So orphaning your children. I mean, we have 3 children and we still have a minor, but fortunately we have 2 children now that we've nominated them to be the guardians of our kids. They're not going to, maybe we should still say name Taylor Swift because that would be pretty cool. But don't leave this to chance. It's too much to risk. We're not talking about a house or a little extra tax. We're talking about your child, where they live, who raises them, what values they grow up with. We're talking about the most important thing in your life. Don't leave this to chance. This is you owe it to your kids to lay this out in clear and uncertain terms so that no one has to worry, no one has to face this. Let's get this done. My number is 866-674-1130. Give me a call. I look forward to talking to you soon.